quick sharpening of the pencils here. I have an electric pencil sharpener over there, but these pencils are too big to fit in it. I guess I need to buy a industrial strength pencil sharpener, you suppose? Is there such a thing? Okay, one more. Hello, friends. Don't know if anybody's here yet, but give me just a second. Nope, nobody's here. At least according to my monitor. But that doesn't stop me, does it? It's Thanksgiving. I hope you guys are all spending time with your... Hello, Karen. Happy Thanksgiving to you, too, my dear. All right. So, as I was just about to say, I hope you guys are all spending Thanksgiving with your family. My family's celebrating Thanksgiving tomorrow. So, today is a work day, but barely. A fun work day. We've already watched the Macy's Thanksgiving Parade. And by the way... You have not watched a Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade unless you watch it with a 3-year-old. Trust me. It made it all worthwhile. I didn't watch much of it, but whatever I did was with our grandson and his 3 older siblings, mind you. But the 3-year-old, he was just enraptured by everything that happened. It was great fun. Anyway, this is Daily Art Adventure number 775, which I am calling NOTAN. I could have called it a NOTAN or a values study and a color sketch. Hello, Uncle 60. You celebrate on Sunday, eh? Oh my, butternut squash soup. That sounds good. To go with yesterday's empanadas. Whatever it was, I forget. All right, let me tell you what's up. Thanks, you guys. We'll enjoy the day together. So I got some people downstairs watching NFL football game. So it feels we had a very nice breakfast, leisurely breakfast, the 8 of us. And that's me, my wife, our daughter, her husband, our son, and 4 grandchildren. So it's a great, great, great time. I'm decided, let me go ahead and move you guys. So forgive me while I blind you momentarily, just to spare you from all the earthquake ride. There we go. So that gives you a better perch, and I can get you in nice and close here. So the project at hand is I have a commission. Yay for commissions. How close can we get? All right. So my client has sent me 2 photographs, and I've actually been here. This is a client in Virginia that I've done a painting for already, and this is a second. He is asking for a vertical portrait because he knows where he wants to put it on his wall, but it's a horizontal photograph. So I want to send Buddy, and then if you could see there is Buddy's dog, so I want to include that as well. So this is an autumn fall scene. You could see the lake back there, house here, and then this other scene, basically from the same point of view, but you can't quite see the house. Oh yeah, there's a tiny bit of the house right there, and oh yeah, that is reflection on the lake down there. So there we go. The beauty of this photograph, of course, is that refracted light coming through the trees. That is almost certainly an element that I will retain. But there's an awful lot of unknowns, things I need to work out in this composition. So I'm very anxious to do a couple studies to figure out exactly, and of course then I'll send it to him. So the main element is this path, which in the photograph, let me check the other one. Oh good, one of them has a bit of a curve in it. I think horizon low can't get too far off reality of this scene, because this is a commission, with a very specific, wow. So we'll talk about the horizon later. There's a prominent tree right here, and the tree is leaning slightly to the right. I'm going to make it lean, it's a pine tree, so just a straight up trunk. I'm going to make it lean slightly more to the right. That's the only major tree, and then there's some second most large tree made prominent is maybe right there. All the other trees are pretty small. And again, I'll mention and I'll describe to you in a minute why it's somewhat important in this case that I get the shape, actually the shape of the path, fairly accurate. In other words, I'm going to worry about it a little more than I normally would, I think, in a scene like this. And then some carefully placed green bush. Oh, a very carefully placed dogwood right here. The scene, the lake down here is Leesville Lake in Virginia, a offshoot, if you will, off Smith Mountain Lake. Smith Mountain Lake is a pretty well-known landmark destination in Southern Virginia. Okay, I'm going to start with that, I think. And I'm going to do this black and white or no tan sketch. I had to look that, I didn't look it up today, I looked it up some time ago. I think it's from the Japanese, the word no tan. And it essentially means a limited black and white sketch, but not a lot of gray. You can have a two-tone no tan, or a 3 or a 4-tone, like different, how many different grays are you allowed to have? It's always black and white, or monochromatic anyway, and the number of intermediate grays that you allow yourself, that's the rule. You can say this is a 4 no tan, a 4-tone no tan. Anyway, I'm not calling it, that's just a little bit of education for those of you who, like me, had never heard of a no tan before a couple years ago. But I'm just calling it a values sketch. Again, because there are enough things I don't know with this painting. I don't know how I'm going to do it up, how I'm going to lay it out. As you can see, there are no buildings in this scene, so I'm sort of, what's the word, fish out of water? I'm sort of, if it doesn't have a building in it, what's the point of painting it? It's my normal style, right? Why would you paint trees? I'm being facetious, of course. I can think of a lot of good reasons to paint a nature scene. Well, almost. So there is a path in it. There you go. There's some structure. That helps a great deal, in my opinion. All right, so let me tell you about my buddy. I don't think he'll mind me telling you this. I'm assuming he's going. I need to send him a text and tell him that I'm working on his painting. Hang on. You know what? I should do that right now. Bear with me just a minute. Let me see if I can send a text with my backup phone. Oh. This phone doesn't have his contact. Okay, never mind. I will. I'll have to send him a text in a little while. Buddy will definitely be wanting to watch this broadcast, but he's gonna have to watch this one in history. So, hey, buddy, I'm working on your painting. So I don't think he'll mind me telling you a little bit about Buddy. Very special guy. He is quadriplegic, lives in a wheelchair, paralyzed from the neck down. Was it C3? Forgive me, not an expert on vertebrae. He was in a T-boned in a car accident. And forgive me, buddy, again, has it been 3 years or 5 years? Anyway, a couple years. And very exceptional young man. His main claim to fame before he was injured was he was a Top Gun fighter pilot. Whoops, and buddy, I'm forgetting it. I should have refreshed my research on it. I think it was Navy, right? Is that Navy? Or was it Air Force? Anyway, forgive me. I know that's very offensive to accuse somebody being in the wrong branch of service. Sorry about that. And this is the path. His house, his parents' house where he lives is up here, and the path comes around here behind us, does a sharp curve. So it's basically a switchback, S-curve. So it goes down the hill here, then down again to the left, and there's the lake. Leesville Lake is down here, house up here. So this is, if I remember right, I think we're facing east, I'm pretty sure. Unless when my wife and I visited there last summer, unless my inner compass was completely kaflooey, I believe this is a sunrise scene. If I'm wrong, buddy, don't tell me. That'll really mess me up, because I feel like I'm looking east here in this picture. No, I'm kidding. Do tell me. If I'm wrong, by all means, let me know. All right, and all of this, I'm just going to do a general mid-tone. So I'm hoping you guys, whoever watches this, besides Buddy, will see the value of the value of a value study. Oh boy, I did not mean to say that way. It just came up. As you know, I don't normally do values studies, but that's not because I don't think they're a good idea. I think all of y'all should do value studies. Do as I do, not as I do. As I say, not as I do. I'm kidding, partly. First of all, when I'm doing a live event painting, a wedding or a corporate function or a festival, of course, part of my, if you will, part of my show-offiness is that I don't do a sketch. I don't have time to do a sketch. There's no time to do a sketch when you're doing a live event painting. So I've gotten pretty good at slapping down, shall we say, slapping down a good composition without any forethought, so to speak, without any sketch. But that does not mean that I don't think it's usually a good idea. I absolutely do think it's a good idea. It's just that what I do in my business precludes that luxury. It's a luxury I usually can't afford. The luxury of doing a value study. Now, Part of the reason I'm doing one here is, again, because there are too many unknowns. Going from this photograph horizontal to vertical, as you may have seen in the title there, I plan to do both a no-tan sketch and a color sketch. I'm sorry I'm talking so haltingly. It's because I'm thinking. Can you tell? So I'm just going to go ahead and block in very loosely some of the larger light and dark shapes as I see them, and then we'll progress slowly toward detail. Let me show you I'm working in gouache. I forgot to say that, didn't I? And part of the reason that I'm ending up with the colors that I am on my painting is because I didn't do any custom mixing. I just used whatever was there on my palette. So as a result, I have sort of dark brown for my darks, but definitely a cool gray for my lights. So that is not part of the plan. That is not part of a no-tan sketch. Is to use a mixture of warmths and cools. They're supposed to be all the same temperature, so to speak. We are definitely entering the Christmas season at our house. It's Christmas music time. So Merry Christmas to everybody. If you can hear the stuff in my background or not, that's, again, nowadays, for the last several months, whenever I'm broadcasting, I am pretty much using this subscription music service that has really been a real blessing to me, real benefit to my broadcast. It's called Epidemic Sound. I pay $15 a month, and I'm able to have their music playing in the background. And most of the time I'm doing music that I have selected myself. They have I think I read somewhere that they have 30,000 recordings in their collection, and periodically I browse according to certain parameters. I usually want calm music, as you can hear or you can imagine. I don't need anything revving me up. I do not listen to music to get revved up. I'm plenty revved all by myself most of the time. So I'm using music that is calm and stays in the background. Anyway, so that's what's going on. You probably can't even hear it right now. But we do have a little Christmas thing happening in the background. All right, I don't know if you remember, or what? Not you don't remember. Yesterday, for both of you who were with me yesterday, I mentioned with the gouache, it's hard to get the whites white enough. Even though this is dried white gouache, theoretically you should be able to reactivate it with water, and you can, but it's just not worth the work. So I always keep a couple extra little tubes of white gouache on hand so that I can just do that right there and don't have to spend time rubbing and rubbing and rubbing. Do you know what I mean? To reactivate the white gouache. All right, you guys are chatting. All my my usuals. Let me see. You guys are chatting up a storm. A very, very loquacious Thanksgiving morning to you all. Let me catch up with you a little bit. Hello, Warren. Good to have you on board. Uncle says, hey, Dan, can I store oil paintings hanging in the cold garage? Yes, I think so. They will dry more slowly in a cold garage. If it's below freezing, they won't dry at all. Yeah, that's what David says. So it depends what cold means. Canada cold, right. They won't dry at all. North Carolina cold, they'll just dry slowly. And I'm looking at all your chats, Kay. Horatio, doesn't you have a C in your name? Is that right? Or you're not being fussy? And David, slow down, man. I can't keep up with you. Miles to go, miles to go. Right. Hang on, David. So I'm going right to the brightest thing that's happening in this scene is going to be the sun shining through the trees here. Okay, since I got a bunch of regulars here, I'll show you guys that I did not do another broadcast last night. I ran into problems with my mixed media illustration. I finished it. It's okay. Don't tell anybody. I'm not entirely happy with it. It's too smooth. It doesn't have enough, but that doesn't matter. I think my client will like it. I think. I shouldn't be saying this in case he watches this, but I don't think that'll happen. It's okay. The problem, one of the technical problems I had was that my spray can of lacquer mat barely worked. I could barely get anything out of it, and that affected the process because I couldn't get enough of a tooth. Anyway, excuse, whine. Other than that, maybe I was just off my game, you know? That's very possible too. But I stuck with it, finished about 10:15 last night, and was glad that I wasn't broadcasting because it was a little bit more work, so to speak, laborious work than I would prefer. One of the All right, are we back? We might be. Hang on just a second. Just a second. All right. Sorry about that. I have no idea what happened. At least I realized instantly. Oh, now we have a buzz, don't we? Rats. All right, so we'll go without a buzz until my battery dies and I disappear for good. Whew. I was going to say, saying one of the aspects from this photograph, even the sun's coming from a different angle, but I love the sun dappling on the path, and if I can include that in some way on this painting, in this scene, I would sure like to do that. So here's my first attempt at trying to do some streaks of light coming through. All right, I'm just about ready now to do some more pencil. Just about ready. All right. Thanks for hanging in there with me, some of you guys. Hello, Muskie. Good to have you with us. I think I'm going to, well, no, I'm not either. I was going to switch over to the control grip, but decided not to quite yet. So traditionally, at least my impression is that traditionally a notan is kept very simple, not a lot of texture, not a lot of details. At least that's my impression, and that's what I don't care to do that with this sketch. So in that respect, this is not a notan. This is a, ooh, that little sapling is right up close. That's an important correction. In that respect, this is not a notan, even though it may be a traditional notan, because I want it to have sort of a typical Dan Nelson texture, thus the use of the pencil and so on. In fact, I'm almost, I'm going to try it. I think I have a charcoal pencil. Yep, right here. I'm wondering about using charcoal instead of the my normal, you know, Jerry's Autorama Jumbo Jet Black. Whoops, use a charcoal pencil because I don't. Oh yeah, okay, it's working. Because I want it darker, blacker, and also that means when I go over this charcoal with gouache, it will smear, which in this case I would think that would be a nice effect. Yeah, that's better. I might go back to the other, but at the moment I'm liking the feel of this. All right, when I first started this a while ago, I mentioned briefly about horizon. I said I want the horizon low. But then as I continued to paint, I realized, oh, wait a minute. This is another one of those images where, and this is important. This can help save us all some confusion. There are two kinds of horizons in most, or in many, not in all, but in many scenes and many paintings. There are two kinds of horizons. One is the literal horizon, and here we're talking, of course, about a landscape, an outdoor scene. Not talking about still lifes. There are horizons in still lifes and portraits, but in that case, they are never, virtually never, I should say, in portraits and still lifes. the horizons in question are visual horizons. All right, so there are two kinds of horizons. I'm going to make this flare out a little bit more. One is the literal horizon. That is the horizon synonymous with the word eye level, which is if you're standing outside and you removed everything that's in your way, like hills, trees, buildings, mountains, whatever, it's where the earth and the sky would meet. So about the only place you really see a literal horizon is when you're standing at the beach. Sometimes you can see what is pretty close to a literal horizon in the the vast grassy plains of the world, or the Arctic tundra, or something like that. So I said I wanted the horizon low. I was talking about the visual horizon, when in actuality the literal horizon here, like if the hill was gone, trees were gone, everything, where would the edge of the ocean be? And it's about there. So it's actually horizon high. I'm okay with that. I just want to make that little distinction there. Bear with me just a second. I didn't think I was going to want any black gouache, but it turns out I do want some black gouache. And I don't even know if I have any black gouache, so bear with me twice. There we go. All right, I do. Yahoo! So I'm going to put some. Should I start a new well? Nah, I'll just use this one. There we go. All right. As I said, discovered I wanted some darker colors than what I was getting with that. I taught first ever in my life, a tree class a couple of weeks ago. I did quite a bit of preparation for it at Art of the Carolinas. And I hope to repeat that, do that tree instruction in a edited YouTube broadcast. I might do it live and then hope to edit it, clean it up later. But as I paint this tree right here, two of the guidelines, principles, tips that I gave, a lot of it was about the morphology of trees, why trees are shaped the way they are, so that you can understand. If you understand trees, you're more likely to paint them more accurately. That was part of the class. Then part of the class was actually a technique step-by-step for painting trees. And as you regulars all can imagine, the basic answer, how do you paint trees? The answer is layer by layer by layer. Boy, that word is hard to say fast. Layer by layer by layer. That sounds like trap, L-A-I-R. Trap by trap by trap. Layer by layer by layer. Anyway, but then I also just had some sort of, I guess, miscellaneous tips. And one of them was avoid vertical whenever possible. So you maybe can see already that this tree leans this way a little bit. This one leans this way a little bit. One of the key operative principles there is you just don't want it straight up vertical, because it's boring. You miss an opportunity. Now, I can imagine, of course, there's an exception to every rule, of course. Some wooded scenes I can imagine, like a birch forest of Russia or something, where a great part of the charm of the scene is, in fact, all these birch trees perfectly parallel and vertical. So anyway, I'm not making an, it's not an airtight rule, as hardly any of our rules are airtight, are they? But anyway, number one, make the tree lean one way or the other. That's a good tip for some of you. And another tip is when you're painting bark, make it interesting. Give the texture of the bark a twist. Give the tree a twist, as opposed to just making it straight. Just think about it, look at it. I think it would be usually more interesting if the tree has a twisting shape to it. It's more interesting. Exceptions to that rule, of course. And the third thing that I said about bark and trunks was your default setting for what color is a trunk of a tree. Your default setting should not be what it is for a grade school kid, brown. Your default setting should be trees are gray, the trunks are gray. Think, just start there. Assume that all trunks are gray until the tree in front of you proves otherwise. But if you start out with the assumption, like we did in, again, like grade school, that trees' trunks are brown, then you'll be fighting against that, and you're liable to, make that your default setting, and then you'll be fighting with your eyes. When you're looking at a specific tree, because you're thinking in your mind, without realizing it, you're thinking, that ought to be brown, but it's not. So anyway, make your tree trunks gray, make that the default setting, and then, tweak from there. Am I making sense to you? Some of that language won't make much sense unless you understand which I'm not going to repeat right now entirely, my principle of the filing cabinet that we all grow up with in our brain, in our mind, to help us make sense of the world. We develop what I call SOS, survival-oriented symbols, or more fully SSSOS, which is super simple survival-oriented symbols. That's what everybody draws when they're 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. And those SOSs get in our way when we're trying to observe the world around us, because we have we don't even recognize that we have these assumptions. And that's one assumption, for instance, that most people have, is that tree trunks are brown. Does that make sense? I hope it did, because I'm not going to repeat it today. David, a while ago, mentioned something about a grayscale. And yesterday, when I was rifling through some of my stuff, I was looking for illustrations. I found this. I hope I can lay my hands on it right now. Now that I've interrupted myself to walk away from you, I found a grayscale. I talk about this often when I'm teaching. Hope I can lay my hands on it. Tell you what, I'm going to come over there, back where you are, and flip through this pile of stuff. I just have a pile of things where sketches and finished drawings go. There it is, right there. If I were teaching an extended, say, drawing class or watercolor class, those two in particular, I have the same thing in watercolor. But if I were teaching an extended drawing, graphite or charcoal, this happens to be graphite. And this is left over from one of my classes. This is what I would make every student do. And this takes quite a bit of time, care, and attention. This is graphite, 0 to 10, but in this case, it's graduated by the hardness of the pencil. So it's slightly different. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And anyway, that is a grayscale. The two rows, this one up here is non-blended. That is pencil without any blending. This one is pencil with a blending stub. So anyway, just for interest's sake, that is a very handy tool. And if you've never made one before, and it's especially helpful in these three mediums, watercolor, graphite, and charcoal, because those three mediums, it's hard to get black, hard to get dark. Any watercolorists out there, you understand that it's in watercolor, it's hard to get dark because you have to keep layered, going back and darkening and darkening and darkening. All right, I'm going to start trying to work on the. Look at this control grip. Isn't that funny? As I said yesterday, when I get into illustration mode, like I am right now, sitting down at a table, all the two-handed stuff, almost all of it, goes out the window, and I'm just operating in a different mode. And it's not, I will defend my normal mode by saying, it's not as good as two-handed painting. But I'm not going to worry about it today. And you can see I'm using one hand to hold my reference, and so on. But even while I do that, I know in my gut, in my heart, that I would be better at this if I was doing it with two hands. Part of the value of that I'm already running into right now, part of the value of doing a value study as opposed to a color study, which I'll do next, is that if it doesn't work in black and white, then it's not working. Do you understand? And that is a principle that is so important even in graphic arts. Like if you're designing a logo, any logo that doesn't pop and do the job in black and white, before you add all the fun, hot, cool, interesting, sexy color, no matter what the color is doing, if it's not working in black and white, then it is not working. So I'm gonna stick with this long enough so I feel like it's successful. This is reflection off a lake, and even though we literally can't see the edge of the lake in the photograph, I don't think. No. I know where it is, and I'm thinking about including that in this painting, just thinking about it. Again, that's why we do sketches, right? To try things, to experiment, to figure out what's a good idea and what's not. Back to a mid-tone. Let me get rid of this dark horizontal line here. This doesn't make sense. When this path turns the corner down there, the woods, it picks up more reflection, so the path, the asphalt, black asphalt path actually gets lighter down here. There we go. Now when I squint and look at this composition at this moment, it's not working very well. No panic, no guilt, no, just so keep working until it does start. So, and I'm going to fall back on previous principles, knowledge, very often. And again, if the drawing's okay, and the drawing is okay, it's obviously pretty simple. Path, rocks, bushes, big trees, little trees, burst of sun. If the drawing's okay and the composition just isn't working, then it is a composition issue. And most of the time, I say about 75, 80% of the time when the composition's not working, it's a values problem, because that's essentially what composition is major values, right? Major value areas. And most of the time, it's a darks values, that is an inadequate darks. And I think that is the case in this painting. So it's just not, it's not hanging together. It's not very exciting. So I'm going to go ahead and push a bunch of darks, make a bunch of stuff darker. See if it starts working a little better. I think all these light areas, they're all just competing with each other. Here's what I'm going to do. Go back to a mid and darken these down a little bit. Too much bright down there. Darken these down a little bit. There we go. Let's get rid of, not get rid of, but push down the competing lights. Does that make sense? Oh, hi, Michael. I missed your question. Did somebody answer? Oh, yeah, did somebody answer? What is Thanksgiving? That's a good question. Okay, at the risk of being overly something triggering anybody, I actually heard a commentator, one of the YouTube people that my wife and I listen to periodically, giving sort of a Thanksgiving, not a holiday, a Thanksgiving greeting to his followers. He said he felt like Thanksgiving was a moment at the beginning of the holiday season. He didn't say this exactly, but in a sense, to get your head screwed on straight. And because so much of the rest of the season is about much focus on self, focus on acquisition, focus on getting stuff. He said Thanksgiving is like a heart preparation. Say, oh, wait a minute. Let's be thankful for all that we already have. I like that. I think that's a good word. So it's I forget which president. It's every grade school learns this in America. Every grade school student learns this in America, but I forget right now which president declared a day of giving thanks. Now, it's funny to some of us who are not uncomfortable with transcendent realities, invisible realities, and it's a little bit humorous because, you know, to give thanks, thanks is a transitive verb. That is, it needs, thanksgiving is something that you do towards something, towards someone. And so the clear inference is thanksgiving to God. And so in my opinion, those who have a place for a God in their worldview are at home with the concept of Thanksgiving. Those who are not so comfortable are left with a rather, and believe me, I understand I could be triggering some of you guys who are hardcore materialists. What really kills me is when some of these hardcore materialists will leave comments sometimes on my thing is, stick to painting, you're a good painter, but blah, 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 your ignorance is showing. Whenever I get into these subjects, which is just ad hominem. That's what people always do when they don't really have. As I've said often, my core being is philosopher. Painting is something I do. Philosophy is something I am. More like, so I'm actually speaking my native tongue when I get into these subjects. Be that as it may, I don't mean to unnecessarily trigger any of you. But Thanksgiving is a time to give thanks to who, what? Well, there you go. So if you don't have a who to give thanks to, then you just kind of have a thankful heart. It's a very American holiday. Third Thursday of every November. It's always on Thursday. And yes, as I think Karen said, food, family, and football. Those are a Macy's Day, Thanksgiving Day parade, and then food, family, and football. My family's doing the food part tomorrow. By the way, just for what it's worth, I am cooking for the, I think, 6th time, a trash can turkey. Oh, by the way, and Michael in Scotland, turkey is the traditional menu on Thanksgiving. That's not everybody does, of course, but that is the traditional Thanksgiving meal. And if you want to see the essence of the American Thanksgiving tradition, just look up Norman Rockwell. Is it called Thankful? Thankfulness, gratitude, thankful? I don't know. But he's got a, you know, sort of the classic American view of Thanksgiving, idealized and so forth. But that's sort of the Hallmark card idealized vision of Thanksgiving in America is the family gathered around the opulent table, about to carve into a beautifully golden brown dead turkey. We draw the line at eating live turkeys here in America. That's not on the, never on the menu. Same way with our cows, by the way. And I know I'm triggering all you vegetarians. Which, by the way, I believe we're going to have some vegetarians at our house at our Thanksgiving tomorrow, because my wife has invited some of her new friends, students from India, who have no family to go to on this special day. So we'll be having a couple young Indian friends with us, and they will be vegetarians. So we'll have to figure out something to feed them besides turkey. All right, am I just about getting done with this, don't you think? Rip off another strip off my charcoal pencil. And I'm supposed to have a piece of sandpaper around here somewhere, but I'm not positive. Hang on just a second, let me look over here. Oh, I do. There we go. I mean, not just any sandpaper, mind you. But sandpaper made specifically for producing a point on a pencil. How about that? So we'll see. I might do just a little bit. I'll keep this over here. I might do a little bit of additional texture and detail. Then probably one more hit of light. You know, I'm not thrilled with it. Hey, Warren. Happy Turkey Day. That's politically incorrect. Warren, my friend, yeah, blessings on you. Oh. How about Happy People Day? No, that would be very politically incorrect. Some people are not happy, so we don't want to oppress them by pretending that we're happy. That would be bad. If there's any happy people in the world, that by definition means they are part of the oppressor class. I'm sorry. Okay, I'll stop. I'll stop at that point. I am... did I tell you I'm in the process of reading? I'm nearly through Karl Marx's Das Kapital. I wanted to, in our current socio-political climate here in the Western world, I wanted to go to the source, the horse's mouth, so to speak. I want to be able to discuss. So you don't know many people that have read Das Kapital. And I'm reading it, of course, so that I can evaluate it, measure it. And yes, I'll tell you my opinion, it is a boatload of sophistic trash. It's a boatload of misunderstandings of reality on very deep level. Of course, you'd expect me to say that, wouldn't you? I've said, I'm sorry, I won't stay on it long, but I will tell you that if I were a 11th grade philosophy teacher at a high-level prep school, and little Carly was in my 11th grade class, and he wrote Das Kapital, I would, first of all, for style, I'd give him a D. I tell you, the man is pedantic beyond description. I mean, he takes 20 pages to say what could have been said in 1.5, and that is true. And ask anybody who's read it. It's like, oh my goodness. So, but in content, I would give him a C-, because I say, Dear Carl, you have made the classic philosophical blunder. A philosopher cannot afford the luxury of making this kind of blunder, but you have done it in spades. And that is by taking his or her very specific, particular local situation in life, Sitzimleben, and expanded it. Not only expanded it to all of humanity, but expanded it indefinitely into the future. That is just a philosophical, boneheaded thing to do. So Karl Marx lived in London in the 1850s, 40s, 50s. So think about it, I like to describe it this way. Karl Marx lived in Charles Dickens' London. And if you know anything about Charles Dickens' London, that gives you a great description of the problem. Early industrial age revolution, industrial revolution, and all the problems that came with that. And Marx, as I said, lived in Great Expectations. He lived in the story, the setting that Dickens for Oliver Twist. That's where he lived, and he assumed that was the denouement, the final resting place of human history. Wrong on so many levels. It's hilarious. Unfortunately, it's not ended up very hilarious for much of humanity, including the 20 million human beings were murdered in the 20th century by the followers of Karl Marx. And anybody who wants to call me ignorant, give me your whatever. That's right. Never mind. I'm sounding really arrogant right now because, doggone it, I am on this when it comes to this kind of stuff. And I know that should not be arrogant anyway. So, but you can spare your "you're so ignorant, stick to painting" comments. First of all, show me your artwork, and then give me your philosophy pedigree, and then we'll start talking. Doesn't mean you have to have a degree, by the way. I have fairly low opinions of people who have PhDs. I don't know if you know that or not. The older I get, the less I think about people who have PhDs. The reason is, to get a PhD, you have to suck up. You're a professional brown noser 80% of the time. That is, that's not a scientific number. But that's how you get to be a PhD, is by sucking up to the system, drinking the Kool-Aid, by being a professional, yeah, I know that's kind of rude language, forgive me. But that's just the easiest way to put it. To get a PhD, you have to drink a boatload of crap and keep smiling and pretending you like it until you're completely brainwashed, and then you go out. It's your job then to brainwash other heads full of mush. All right. So I don't mean that you have to have a PhD. I would just want to see your life story. All right, boy, who thought I was going to get so negative so quick, eh? I thought he was a nice guy for a while there. My dashed were hopes on the rocks of reality. Wait, my hopes were dashed on the rocks of reality. Now we see his true colors come out. Oh boy. I hope you're chuckling. Everything I say is kind of said with a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek anyway. I know I'm being a provocateur at times. It's getting better. And this is why we do color studies. And if I get too bogged down here, I'm going to end this broadcast. Even though I called it doing a value study and a color study, I'll end halfway through the value study because I'm spending a little more time on it than I had expected. So here's what I'm thinking right now. I need there to be more clearly identifiable major shapes, or trans shapes is a word that I've been using here lately. So I'm trying to build a bridge between the lightest area here, between that and this light area and the top of this is a tree, little sapling that's up close. And again, here's this sapling, I don't know how well you can see that right there. There's a lot of light on those. And this is green grass, very bright, right there. And I'm trying to, through intermediate shades of gray, lighter shades of gray, build pathways, might be a good word. It's a little isthmus, very hard word to say. You know, an isthmus is a narrow spite streak of land between two bodies of water, isthmus. So that I'm using that as an analogy. I'm trying to build some isthmuses. If the word isthmus is hard to say, the word in plural is even worse, isthmuses. And you know what I want for Christmas? An isthmus. Failing that, I want several of them. In fact, I've wanted that for many Christmases. I've wanted isthmuses for my Christmases as long as I can remember. A little bit of slap-happy humor to counteract the overbearing philosophical conversations and insults of people who disagree with me. Woo! That's what we aim to please here. Not really, not too much. We aim to please. Unfortunately, we're a really bad shot. We aim to please. Of course, our aim ain't so good. That's working better. So I've got sort of a little bit of a general light area here. I can't. Nobody's commenting. You all have fallen into embarrassed silence. Like, I can't believe we're hearing this. Can you? Either for the philosophical rantings or the feeble attempts at immature humor. Oh my. It's working a little better though. Let me continue. So I'm going to get a lighter color on my brushes. And definitely, I'm going to end this broadcast at the end of I should have just called it a value sketch and not tried to, I should have known better than to try to think I could cram both color sketch and a value study both into one broadcast. Not going to happen. So I'm continuing here, just expanding this light area of light, zone of light. So again, those you regulars, in my opinion anyway, that composition is actually a subset of the values principle of design. Composition refers to the major light and dark zones in a painting. And essentially, the light or dark zones, this is one of the simplest ways to I won't get any more complicated than this, but one of the simpler ways to think about composition is this. Either the light or the dark zones in a painting should be able to be described in essentially one word. And if that's the case, then you can see why this painting, at least as it was a few minutes ago, and maybe still is falling a bit short of that goal, because you'd be hard pressed to name the shape. Let me take a whack at it here. And part of the value of thinking in these terms is early in the process. Then you can actually begin to manipulate things. I want to be more or less faithful to my reference, right? Buddy is looking for a reasonable facsimile of his path. But at the same time, even actually more important than that, without obliterating the scene, and I think I've got that, and I'm comfortable with the representational aspect of this sketch. So more important than that is this values issue. All right, so at the moment, here, this is stretching it just a little bit, but here's one thought. You can tell me what you think. Very roughly speaking, I have a wedge of light, kind of like that. This is an outlier. These are outliers. That's one. That's a little bit weak because there's just, that's hardly light up there. So one option is I should lighten this area so that it becomes a little bit more of a wedge. I'm not done yet. That's the light area. Another option would be to say that the dark is sort of an exaggerated barbell or butterfly shape. Dark, narrow, dark, except this is an outlier then. In that case, maybe the dark is a U shape. Does that make sense? Another option is that this is using Edgar Payne's terminology. This is a mass, one mass, single mass composition, and that's this, light here radiating outward from there. So just a single mass. And again, if you can find one of Edgar Payne's design stems, that's all I'm going to, you can just Google that or follow me and I'll talk about it again another time. If you can find one of Edgar's design stems, then you're probably not too far off. All right, but let's go back to one of those. So of the ones that I mentioned, I called it wedge, butterfly, U. I think those are my strongest themes, strongest possibilities. Of those three, I'm now asking myself, and I'm squinting, which of those can I see the best? And again, keeping and looking at, I can use the photograph, of course. Because the next thing I'm going to do, if I can see one of those, the next thing I would do is try to push the composition in that direction a little bit. And I think a U kind of shaped like this. So what that means I might do then is, again, try to manipulate, because that's what we're here to do, right? Manipulate the values. So that means basically, let's start by darkening these stones. I still want them to look like light stones down here in the foreground. Same thing with this bush right here. I just obliterated them more than I wanted to, but bear with me. Maybe they'll come back a little bit when they dry. In the meantime, I'm going to darken around them a little bit. Ooh, that's a good idea. It can stand to be considerably darker down here in the foreground. See, things show up when you start playing around. Things begin to appear. It's like, oh yeah, why is this foreground so light? It doesn't need to be this light at all. Well, usually what happens, you realize, oh, why did I do it that light? Oh, because that's the way it is in the photograph. That's the ubiquitous wrong answer. You discover those things by hanging out in a painter's group or an artist group where you meet together periodically, because these same mistakes we all make keep coming up over and over in the group. Why'd you do that? Oh, because it was in the photograph. And you know, after many months of that, or years, after a while you begin to say, you start to answer the question, then you go, whoops, I did it again, didn't I? That is to say, silly me, I did what I did because it was in the photograph. Does that make sense? And basically that's, oh good, the composition just got better. I am happy to announce, yahoo, composition just got better, didn't it? Isn't that amazing? Sheesh. First of all, it's amazing that I can be so dumb as to not see that before now. But secondly, it's amazing that, oh, at least I caught it late. And so it's much better. And these still, down here now, they still look like light rocks. They're actually very light in the photograph. But they still look like light rocks in shade, so that works. And then I'm thinking, if I just lightened this a while ago, but now I'm darkening it. I lightened it earlier for similitude, for, you know, because that's the way it is in the picture. But now I'm darkening it so that I can achieve this meta shape. I like, lately I've taken to calling it. And there's some leaves over here that I can also darken all the way up here. Little tiny bits of color or value are okay, of course. We're not talking about. And this strip of bright green grass right here is way too bright, way too bright. So let's fix that, and that will also help bring the composition into a higher degree of hang together cohesion. It'll hang together, cohese. Now I'm looking and thinking. And that grass thing that I just darkened, I'm going to lighten this end of it again, closer to the light focal point of the painting. So, whether I'm doing a good job or not, at least the process I want you to hear is valid, which is while, and this is especially why a color sketch is so helpful. Normally I'm doing this kind of thing, of course, in the real painting, in the sketch, not in the sketch, but in the actual painting. But it's a lot easier to work these things out ahead of time. So once you choose, as I just did, I chose this backwards D, right? Do you see this? That tree creating such a major element and then kind of a curve like that. So I'm describing the dark area, not the light area. I'm describing the dark area with one word, and that's again one of the rules, one of the ways to achieve a good composition is you should be able to describe either the light or the dark area with a single word. So in this case, I'm describing the dark area. If I were to describe the light, it would be, it's a little more scattered, doesn't hang together, but it's probably just a mass. Counting these two areas out as outliers, if you will, then I would just call this a central mass, which is admissible as well. Oh, I'm going to put a dog, and I won't worry. He's not, of course, part of the composition. If you put an animal, a single animal, in a scene, then you've created, to a significant degree, you've created a psychological focal point, not a visual focal point, but a psychological one. And Buddy's dog is pretty important, so I'm going to put him in here, but he'll be down here in the path somewhere. And again, I have an image of him right here. In fact, let me edit him right now because I want him facing the other way. So let's flip him. There we go. All right, so that'll be my, I forget the dog's name, I should remember. I feel like I can drag some light, not as light as the focal point. This is the sun coming toward us. That'll be beautiful in color, of course, just like it is in the photograph here. How well you can see that, but that glow, the refracted light, is certainly beautiful. But I think if I can connect these, that will again help the composition hang together. It makes it less of a capital D. It makes it then again a U shape. In my mind, and I hope to be a better artist, of course, a year, 5 years, 10 years from now, but this is where I am in my journey right now. That's as good as I can do. I don't mean this as good as I can do, but the thinking, the thought process is as good as I can do. I have 4 different ways to think about, at least 4 or 5 different ways to think about composition. I've just given you one of the simpler ones. In color, of course, this will be warm yellow, orange. This will be spring green, green, brown. There'll be a lot of, more interesting things happening in color. But this helps get the job done in composition terms, making sure that based just on values, does the composition hang together. And I think it's done. I'm pretty comfortable with it now. All right, anybody saying anything much better? Thank you, Moraid. And gouacheness, yes. I have not been drinking. Thank you for asking. And Moraid asked, do I generally? Yes, absolutely. I do if I do a no-tan or a color sketch, yes. Gouache, I just happen to have one right here. Here, this is a study for, it's too close to my water bucket. This is a study for a cheesy, can I use that term? Class that I'm going to teach in December. And this is going to be my first ever sort of like Bob Ross, paint along with me, stroke by stroke, that I'm going to try to teach, and we'll see if anybody wants to take it. It's called, Winter Wonderland. But I think I'm going to change this figure to a red coat, and then I'll give that option anyway. And I'm going to do that since it comes up, and do that on aluminum. So, and I need to do that here really soon. That's a task been calling to me for a long time, and the class is coming up next week, so I guess I'll be doing that really soon. All right, guys. So this turns out it's only the values sketch, not value study. Did I call it that? So I'll do a separate broadcast, hopefully later today. I'm going to take a little break. You'll get a notification if you've hit the bell. By the way, I never remember to say things like, you guys, if you like me, it's, do you like me? Yes, no, maybe. You help me out if you can just give me a thumbs up anytime I do a broadcast that you like. David, you don't have to do the thumbs down. Really, you don't have to. You can if you want to. If you do, I'll know it's you. But that will help me with my SEO a little bit. All right. Thanks, guys. I'm going to call it quits. Bye, y'all.